Hello, and welcome back to the pricing channel for small businesses. Today we're going to continue our discussion of market segmentation for maximizing our profitability. Now, in our previous video, we demonstrated that an organic carrot farmer could boost his profitability by segmenting his market into people who wanted organic carrots and people who wanted ordinary carrots. In this video, we will go into more depth about how market segmentation is achieved and the most common strategies that are used in the business to consumer markets for segmentation. And so let's take a look at how this segmentation game is played.
So let's talk about some market segmentation strategies that we can use in order to segment markets for our products and services. So as we mentioned in the previous video, just because you sell your product or service into a target market segment does not preclude selling into other market segments. And to illustrate how this worked, in the previous video, we looked at an example of an organic carrot farmer segmenting his market in order to sell out his production capacity. And so in this presentation, we'll talk about some of the common strategies that will allow you to do market segmentation, whether you're selling a product or a service, in order to maximize your profitability. And we'll point out which of these market segmentation strategies that the organic farmer used in order to maximize his profitability. So the first strategy we're going to talk about is one that uses orthogonal market segments as the segmentation scheme. And so orthogonal market segments are distinct areas of the marketplace that have no relationship to each other and no overlap. And the word orthogonal literally means something or two things that are 90 degrees apart from each other. And so orthogonal market segments literally just bear no relationship to each other. An example of this is auto manufacturers, who obviously sell cars to the general public through dealerships, but also sell cars into the rental car market. The cars which are sold into each market segment are essentially the same or exactly the same, but the dynamics of each market segment are drastically different. And in general, for the auto manufacturers, the consumer segment is more profitable than the rental car segment, but the rental car segment uses a lot of automobiles, and so this allows manufacturers to increase their manufacturing volume, which lowers their unit manufacturing costs, which improves the overall profitability of both market segments for the manufacturers. Many consumer products are sold into orthogonal market segments by the use of selective messaging. An example of this is the auto manufacturer Subaru, who by the 1990s had identified 5 distinct market segments for Subaru automobiles. One segment comprised teachers and educators. Another distinct segment was healthcare professionals. Yet another distinct segment was IT professionals. Also, the folks who considered themselves rugged individualists. And finally, lesbians. So these 5 segments were identified by Subaru customer research, and they realized or understood that these 5 segments were totally orthogonal. They bore no relationship to each other. They had no overlap whatsoever. And so Subaru has successfully sold into all of these orthogonal markets through the use of selective media channels. They identify a key media channel in each distinct market segment, and then they follow that with selective messages for each segment. And so the messaging that Subaru sends to teachers and educators is going to be dramatically different than that which they send to lesbians. Now, another strategy that we can use to segment markets is by specification, product specification or service specification. So let's take an example of a company A, that fabricates a metal plate. And this metal plate nominally measures 2 feet by 2 feet by 0.5 inches thick. Now, despite that being the nominal measurement that they produce and that they advertise, it turns out that the true thickness of their plates can vary from 0.50 inches to 0.53 inches. That's just the variation that their production process imparts to the plates that they produce. For the general market, they sell these plates for $45 each. And by general market, we mean maybe Home Depot sells these, or maybe Lowe's sells these. And so if you go to one of those outlets to buy one of these plates, you're going to pay $45 each. And you have to understand that the true thickness of each plate you buy might be slightly different. Now, there's a company out there, Company B, that buys 0.5 inch plates, the nominal measurement 0.5 inches, but in fact, they can only use plates that have a maximum true thickness of 0.51 inches. And so Company A, the producer of the plates, is able to satisfy that requirement by Company B by going out into their finished good inventory and selecting those plates that measure exactly 0.50 inches and those plates that measure exactly 0.51 inches. And those are the plates that they supply to Company B. Because of the different requirements in Company B's market, the Company A is able to sell these plates for $95 each. And so in essence, Company B is a whole new market segment in and of itself for the plates that Company A produces. And so they've segmented their total production by the specification required by Company B. That's not required in the general market that they service. Here's another somewhat humorous example of market segmentation by specification. Some people absolutely demand Christmas trees during the Christmas season. And other people absolutely demand that they get holiday trees during the Christmas season. And so here's a fictional enterprising tree seller who has managed to thread that needle by separating his tree lot into 2 sections. And in one section, he sells Christmas trees, and they have a big label on them, Christmas trees. And in the other part of his tree lot, he is selling holiday trees, and they clearly have a holiday tree label on those trees. Now, obviously, the trees all come from the same grower, but because they're labeled differently and because customers have different requirements for the trees they buy, the dynamics of each segment are different. And so the seller is able to price the trees for each market segment. I do not know if an actual tree lot like this exists anywhere. Market segmentation by specification also occurs in the residential construction industry. A typical ordinary home, if you will, comprised of ordinary building materials might have a construction cost of $125 per square foot. However, some people want their houses built of what might be called environmentally friendly materials. And in fact, in the residential construction segment, there is a certification process called the Green Guard certification process, which a builder can certify his house to if it contains a certain amount of environmentally friendly materials. The construction cost of that kind of construction is higher. In this case, it's called $175 per square foot, and the price of that house is going to be higher than the ordinary house. But for people who have a requirement for that type of construction and certification, they're willing to pay the price to get what they want. Another example of market segmentation by specification might be the case of a company that produces a diesel engine motor oil that meets a certain Department of Defense military specification. Now, obviously, the company can sell to the military, but they can also sell into the private sector through Walmart, through Napa Auto Parts, any other distribution firm. In the private sector, they're going to be competing against everybody else's diesel oil, and so they're going to probably price this around $24 a gallon, and they do not provide a CNC, which is called a Certificate of Conformance. They do not provide that CNC to private sector customers. In other words, we don't certify to private sector customers that our oil that you just bought will meet this military spec. Now, this is important because when they do sell to the military, they are required to provide that Certificate of Conformance to prove to the military that the oil does meet the specifications that the military is looking for. Now, the dynamics of that market are totally different, and so the conformance to the military specification allows this company to sell that gallon of oil to the military for $115 a gallon. And so they've segmented that market, not by the fact that the oil is different, whether it's going to one segment or the other, but simply whether they will certify it to a very specific and rigid specification. This type of thing also happens very often in the chemical industry, where chemicals will be priced differently in different market segments because they are certified to different specifications. One example of that might be a chemical called calcium carbonate. It's a white solid powder. When that powder product is used in an ordinary everyday application like plaster, it's literally sold by the ton. But when it's used in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, in the manufacture of antacids, it is priced by the pound because it's required to meet a very, very selective set of certifications in order to be used in pharmaceutical applications. Two very different market segments, the same chemical, but it's required to meet different requirements, and so it's priced differently in each segment. Now, another strategy for market segmentation is what we call relabeling. An example of this is a pair of binoculars that you might find at Walmart. They might be priced at $99.99, just as an example. But that same set of binoculars with a marine label on it might in fact sell for, say, $179 at a West Marine boat store. And the only functional difference between the two sets of binoculars is the labeling on those binoculars. Another example is a company called Wolverine Shoes, which is an upscale boot manufacturer. who also happens to sell more commodity branded boots into various other markets such as hush puppies and private label brands such as Keds. Basically the same boots, but because of different labeling, different brand labeling, they can sell these into different market segments, and those segments demand different pricing. In fact, this relabeling strategy is the strategy that the organic carrot farmer used in our previous video. He sold most of his carrots with an organic label on them for folks who actually wanted and valued organic carrots. But then he took that label off for carrots that he sold into the ordinary everyday carrot market at a lower price. And so by this selective labeling of what essentially are the same carrots, he was able to support a different pricing level in those two market segments. We can also segment markets by perceived quality. Consider bakeries who sell day-old products at lower prices to price-sensitive market segments or customers. The reason why they sell at a lower price is the day-old products are perceived as being lower quality. The people who want fresh out of the oven baked goods are willing to pay a higher price than the people who are perfectly satisfied with day-old baked products. Now, an interesting impact of this is that if a bakery finds out that, or sees that the demand for day-old goods is exceeding their supply of day-old goods, they can take fresh goods and just put a day-old label on them and now sell them into that lower quality market to service that unmet demand. Book publishers sell paperback versions of books and e-versions of hardback books at lower prices. And the reason for this is not only the cost involved with paperbacks and e-versions versus hardback books, but the fact that hardback books are perceived as the higher quality product. Clothing industry sells marked down clothing goods through discount chains at lower prices. And these are perceived as good deals by consumers at the end of the fashion season. Because at the end of the fashion season, these goods, these clothing goods now have a perceived lower quality. They're no longer the newest thing. The newest thing is going to come out next season. And so the manufacturers discount the goods, just like day-old baked goods, at the end of the fashion season in order to move out that inventory. So in summary, there are a number of ways that we can go about segmenting products and services so that we can expand our market opportunities. And one very advantageous reason for doing this is that by segmenting our products and services into different market segments, we can maximize the price that we can obtain in each different market segment. And the basic overall purpose of doing this is to maximize our profitability. And we maximize that profitability either because we experience increased sales, or the increased manufacturing helps to lower the cost of production due to the increased sales, or both of these things take place. We get lower production costs, and we also get increased sales, which improves the profitability in each of the market segments that we participate in.
You may have noticed that we talked about 4 general segmentation strategies in the presentation: orthogonal market segmentation, segmentation by specification, segmentation by relabeling a product or a service, and finally segmentation based on perceived quality. Now I'd like to do a deeper dive into orthogonal market segmentation because it really gets to the heart of the value of a product or service in the eyes of a consumer. Orthogonality works because of a marketing concept known as FAB, F-A-B, which stands for features, advantages, and benefits. As you can see from the graphic, features talk about the size, the quality, the varieties, the types of material used, and the color of something. Advantages are features that solve problems, meet needs, and satisfy wants. And finally, benefits are advantages that a specific consumer perceives to be valuable to them. And so this is what you're really selling is benefits. Orthogonality works because one group of consumers will see a certain subset of features as an advantage, while another group will view another set of features as the advantages that they care about. For each market segment, we translate these advantages into benefits, and presto, we can sell the same product to both market segments and improve our profitability. Now in our next video, we will wrap this series up with a discussion of how we might be able to optimize our pricing in each customer segment in order to further improve our profitability. And so please, remember to hit that subscribe button down there so you don't miss that next important video. And as always, I look forward to seeing you again.